And did you hear the really nasally voice say recording in progress?
Yes.
Recording in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a real future in as a natural speaker, learning how to talk like an AI voice, so we can take back our jobs.
Reverse Turing
Yeah.
test.
The thing I've noticed with AI voices nowadays is that's a giveaway for me is that they just sometimes weird, stilted pronunciations of things and weird pauses and syllables that why would you even pronounce something that way? But it reminded me of working with that human voice person years ago, professional guy too, it was weird. But I'm
Yeah.
also noticing they're cloning people's voices.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Big business.
That was a
Right.
recent thing with what's her name, Scarlett Johansson. She got upset about that because
Well, yeah,
they
because
didn't get her permission, and she said, "No, I don't want you to do that." And then there it just appeared, and she's like, "Hey, wait."
well, yeah, then they tried to claim it wasn't her, but
Right.
they had asked something like 5 days prior. They had asked her permission
Right.
before this rollout. It was all very strange. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
reminds me of the days where they would tell an artist like Tom Waits, like, we really want you to do this Doritos commercial. And if you don't do it, we'll just hire somebody that sounds like you.
Well, I think
Right.
I keep going back to apparently Crispin Glover and Back to the Future 2. He was the one that sort of set precedent for you can't impersonate me, even though it was a bad impersonation, because I guess but he at least set that precedent that like you're trying to make it be this actor. You can't make it be this actor.
Right.
I don't blame him because they made
for
him
him.
look really grotesque. I mean, it wasn't him, but still, it looked really weird.
It was bad. Yeah, uncanny valley.
John's here.
Oh, good.
Hi, John.
Recording in progress.
Yes, I was going to tell you, but apparently it tells you right out of the gate. That's good. How you
there's
doing?
Toby.
Yeah, hey,
Yeah, it's
John.
going okay.
You're home, it looks like. No?
Right.
Yeah, that
I'm
didn't
a
really
little,
require an answer. That's fine.
I'm a little dead brained. Actually, let me move to headphones, and that way there will be less room echo. Let's see if I can find my headphone. Where are they? Oh God, they're supposed to be right here, but they clearly aren't. In that case, this will do. Oh wait, here they are.
It sounds basically okay, but maybe a little less room.
Yeah, it's really actually as rooms go, it sounds pretty good. We all sound really good.
I think I'll still use the room mic or the built-in microphone, so that should sound the same. So, and how's that?
Sounds great.
Yep.
That sounds great. Yeah. Okay. And I can turn off this.
So the idea is I'll probably I think the interview will be like half hour to 45 minutes long, if that's okay. I mean, after I edit it and stuff. I mean, we can always just talk too.
I love editing.
And then, yeah. And my show's tonight, by the way, so I will be busily editing as well as compiling a radio show, which will consist of a lot of Negativland, obviously.
Oh, hooray.
Are you coming to the screening? Are you coming to the show, Rich?
Mm-hmm.
I will be coming to the show, yeah.
Me too.
Now, late in the game, and this won't be in the interview, I'll let you know, like, really definitely when the interview starts, because it's all just preamble-y stuff. But kind of late in the game, I don't know if you guys were in on this thread. Mark expressed an interest in streaming the show on KBOO.
Yeah. I saw the tail end of. I was CC'd on one of those.
And I was.
It seemed like it would be tricky, or that it was.
It's a movie.
It's fine with me if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and that's. I felt similarly. One is late in the game. I have no idea what volunteer engineering resources are like at KBOO, because like you, I'm like kind of in exile. I'm doing my radio show from my home studio. So I was like expecting a no, but then I just yesterday or this morning I got a email from our head engineer Arthur, who really wants to do it.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean it will happen, but somehow wants to do it. And it might be as simple as somebody there with a laptop just patches into the board, and I don't know how.
Basically,
Because I'm going to be there enjoying the show. I'm not going to have any.
Exactly.
As soon as the movie is over, and then there's like an introduction to and then, because obviously you're not going to be playing the audio of the movie over the radio and all.
Right.
So we'll just.
I think that'd be cool.
That would be fine.
That actually, it's
It's
a
pretty
fantastic
listenable.
Sound. It's very listenable.
If
The
you just
movie-
close your eyes and listen, it would be all right.
I think so.
The movie that you wouldn't really need an edit for the soundtrack album. It's an album.
It did play something like the last 5 minutes played over the air, and then they did just for, I think it was Kentucky or somewhere, and it worked. It was all right. Like I was kind of surprised that they were playing it. I thought, oh, this is gonna be weird, but it actually was all right. So, but
Yeah, and
there's an
sound-
original, so.
Cool is weird.
Yeah, and sound design wise, the movie is really interesting sounding as well as visually.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, he hasn't seen it. I've seen it a couple times. I saw it once when there was a pay-per-view
Yeah.
kind of one, and then it's surfaced on YouTube, and then I've watched it again. I want to watch it. I'm really excited to see it with an audience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I'll probably repeat that for
Big
the
screen.
actual interview.
yeah. Well, I hope you guys like the Hollywood. It's a great theater.
Yeah,
I'm psyched. I've never been there, but yeah, every
It's a
time I'm
treasure.
in Hollywood.
it's like a 1920s kind of theater.
Mhm.
Do they have the Scopatone? Do they have Dennis's
Yeah,
Scopatone? They have a Scopatone machine.
It just sits there in the lobby as a display. but
Yeah. Oh, bummer.
Yeah, it's not up and running. But yeah, it's
Yeah, it's a neat theater.
Yeah.
I guess we could start the interview. And
Yeah.
I'm going to do a little preamble.
Yeah, do we have, I guess before we start the actual interview, I guess we're going to talk a bit.
Oh,
We're going to talk like with you, Ryan, because you're sort of the novel thing in this time around with, I mean, we're screening a film as well as showing, as having the live show and everything. So I guess we probably want to get a little bit of background on your whole trip and, maybe how you met these guys and what prompted you and
Do you want me to do a spiel in the background?
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I had made a documentary about a punk rock bar in Seattle, and I was screening it, and the woman who was screening it, I was complaining about music licensing, and she mentioned Negativland, and I had never heard of Negativland. So I really went into this like knowing nothing. I didn't know anyone that liked Negativland. I'd never heard of Negativland. Like completely, I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's like I no idea about Negativland. But she told me about them, and she was friends with Mark Hostler. And so I said, let's go shoot some shows. And she basically gave me the spiel about copyright and fair use and everything. So I was an immediate fan. And so I just filmed some shows about 10 years ago, and that kind of amounted to a little work with them, doing some editing of things, which led to doing some music videos, which led to making sort of a movie about Don Joyce when he passed away, to this, which is sort of the big snowball accumulation of everything into one final feature snowball.
Yeah, and then your
That's the
videos
spiel.
for
There you go.
the two videos you did for Negativland are probably how I first became familiar with
5.
your work.
Five.
Five videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're wonderfully made.
Yeah, so there's more data. What are they, John?
More data in the order. It was more data destroying anything. Then This Is Not Normal. And then Don't Get Freaked Out, and the sort of coda was Anything Else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Don Joyce documentary was fantastic
Boy,
and moving.
Yeah, it's emotional.
Very much
Hard to
so.
watch at points, even probably.
Oh, I can't watch it. I can't watch it. I mean, I watched it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's got
it hinges on this, this interview by William Davenport he did, and I think in 2013 that interview probably was, and it was just a really great interview where Don talks in depth about his work and inspiration, and we hadn't really heard a long in-depth Don talking about his work, and it's just you could watch the whole interview, but basically that movie was kind of like an excuse to put that interview out into the world and celebrate his life. And
He's not the most talkative guy in the world.
Unless he's in a character.
Yeah, when he's on the mic.
The only episode I ever heard him talk about himself very much was the one that he did with Mark as Oldie McOlderson.
Yeah.
And Don talks about his days in the 1960s and how he ended up in San Francisco. And it's just fascinating. I mean, I think it fills up the bulk of the 3-hour show, and it was really good.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a unique one. There was a lot of autobiography in that.
Yeah.
Crosley Bendix is, of course, all like Through the Looking Glass autobiography. Like, Don went to RISD, and he was, and as like Ryan, right? You were there.
Oh,
yeah.
But like, Don was a painter. And so when Don goes on mic as Crosley Bendix as an arts critic, there is a lot of stuff in the memory banks that just comes out, not even upside down, just kind of much as Pastor Dick is all thinly veiled autobiography, Crosley is Don.
I didn't know that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It all makes sense now.
Yeah.
So
Don would talk. Don would talk about theory if once he got comfortable. But comfortable, that was seldom. And the show was his main framework for everything.
He did some art shows later on. There was like the art show and art, all about art, and some of those he'd get into.
Those were great because he would have callers asking questions about techniques, and he would, in character, really get in detail about art techniques and things. It was great.
And criticism. He hated a lot of art, and
Yes, he did.
Didn't he invent a color? Was it squant or something?
Squant.
Yeah, squant. Oh my God. Yeah, legendary.
The days of the old Negativland website, and I seem to remember there was like this booby trap in the squant page that if you clicked it, you'd be really, really, really sorry. And I don't remember what it was. It was either like
it was a plugin. It was a plugin that let you install a plugin that would enable squant the color squant to appear on your CRT monitor, and if you dared install it, it would break everything. So it was
Trojan horse there.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what else. Anything else about the making of your film, Ryan, and any other sort of
well, it kind of came together pretty fast, actually. In the summer of 2022, I just finished filming the Southwest tour, and it just seemed to me that after the COVID lockdown and sort of the way that media really just changed out of necessity, and the way that it changed, it just was very obvious to the world how it was changing. So it was like kind of like a pinpoint for the world to understand global media. So it was like this kind of, that was when it became obvious to me that it was going to be a movie. Like, this is a story. Like, now this Negativland story kind of like can come to the present pretty easily. So then, I just kind of like took stuff that was public, because there's just so many hours and hours and hours of Negativland material. I mean, I've heard it as criticism that the movie, takes things out of context and puts it in different context. And it's like, that's essentially what it does. It takes,
exactly. That's what I enjoyed about it, is it so reminded me so much of the same approach that Negativland takes, I think, with music.
Yeah. So let's go back into history a little bit. Fans will know that's time zones, and then be able to hear the whole song probably. And but but somebody new to, I did actually make this with somebody new in mind, somebody that's like me, maybe from Salt Lake City, and they'd never heard of Negativland before. And I think that people who have never heard of Negativland will understand it and be able to follow it and even enjoy it and laugh and have a connection to it. I've heard it's a difficult watch, and I've heard it's not a difficult watch. So,
well, I'm going to see about getting some people who may or may not be all that aware or knowledgeable to come, and it'll be fun to hear what they have to say about it.
What strikes me, I think the criticism that you're referring to is that more than one person comes to a film about Negativland and is expecting much more of a traditional talking head documentary where there's a lot of high-level conversation about the concepts of cultural jamming and media pranking and fair use and transformative sample-based art. And instead, Ryan made a film out of a bunch of home movies and a bunch of guys on the spectrum who happen to be in a band, but also mainly just record themselves a lot.
Yeah.
And then edited it in an unbelievably dense, hyper self-referential, context-destroying style. That's why it's about the band as much. It's the editing of the film that shows the band's technique. But David, the weatherman, is sort of the framework. He's been recording himself since 1958. And most families have been recording themselves, or have at least one member of the family who got a tape recorder and then a videotape camera. So the strange thing about this is that it's actually really relatable. David is simultaneously the world's strangest person and the most charming, relatable person out there. And the reason why people
family oriented.
Yeah, he loves his mom. and he takes us inside his home. And so this film, if you're a fan, a lot of people walked away saying like, well, this might not be the best place to start because you don't really understand cultural jamming or fair use after watching it. Ryan's film takes all of those concepts for granted. What this film does, my mom loved it because she loves David, she loves the people. And I think the members of Negativland usually, like, as Mark often says, we never tell how the sausage is made. We try not to be people. We're trying not to be a personality-led band. We are all utterly shocked that Ryan made a film about the people of Negativland and that she made it watchable.
Very much so, yeah. And I like that it was people-centered.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that.
Well, and the key... Yes, go. Yeah.
But going back to the that it's relatable, it's true that this suburban kid growing up with radio, that's like a kind of person, when you're walled off in your suburbs and you have no idea how to reach culture except for what comes at you through the electronic airwaves. You become fascinated with it and you want to interact with it. So I feel like that's a very natural reaction. So what David does is like kind of like what I would wish I would like. That's how I wish I would behave. I wish I could like take apart radios and make new things and make sound and make myself laugh and
Yeah, he takes it pretty far.
Natural.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up being a bit of a radio geek, not in the technical sense of taking apart my radios, but really, really loving to listen to an AM radio back in the late 60s and just really dorking out about it and like finding the places in between the radio stations where you can barely hear a station that was probably coming from 6 states away or something. And, I even made little lists, I understand his, he just takes it into such a great, direction and far. He takes it far.
I think there are a lot of American homes that still have cassettes where so the kids in the family made their own radio show. It's like, welcome to the drive, welcome to Bill Malone's Drive Time Talk radio show where we're going to tell some jokes. And now we're going to interview my dad. Hi, Dad. Hi. And it's that. So this film is not weird.
Yeah.
It's normal.
It's normal.
It's the new normal.
So I'm assuming that a whole lot of archival, like you were talking about home movies and stuff like that, but how much digging did you have to do to, and were people like, Mark like going through shoe boxes full of stuff and
I had to say stop. I had to say stop sending
uh-huh.
things. Yes, shoe boxes. I mean, it's all amazing. The trouble is, it's all amazing, but it comes to a point where like this is the plan, and this plan is saturated with stuff. So like there could be probably a 9-hour
Yeah.
documentary about Negativland, and I would watch it honestly. Because there really is. I mean, this documentary is a surface scratch. Like there just is so much more. But I got, because they don't, I think they don't, there's a label issue. There's some issues with labeling where you don't really know what's on all of the tapes. And so you have to spend the time digitizing the tapes. And the digitizing is where you first watch the tape. So there was a lot of that. Like, I don't know what's on this tape kind of a thing. So
that's time consuming.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's like 2 hours of rain sometimes. 2 hours of rain.
Yeah, David recorded the weather a lot. Yeah.
Oh, go figure.
Oh, nice.
And baby monitors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a relative recent thing, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there were baby room monitors in the 80s.
That's true.
It's that people have gotten comfortable with those home invasions a long time ago. But yeah, you digitized it all. Like, how many versions of the film did you keep track of the number of distinct edits? Like number of times you, like what's.
I had to torture a few friends to watch it a few times to watch and tell me, when does it get confusing? When does it get boring? So some of the early ones, that was what I would do, is kind of use a friend as a guinea pig, to tell me if it made sense. Because I had no idea if it even made sense. It seemed to me that it made sense, but
yeah, that'd be difficult, especially when you're immersed in it for so long. That would be incredibly hard.
There gets to a point where you can't watch it anymore because it's your brain creates ruts and you can't see it fresh anymore. So comes to a point where you really can't work on it anymore. So that definitely happened.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Well, there are every once in a while on tour, like a theater will still have an earlier version of it, and I'll see the earlier version for the first time and see all the stuff that got cut out of the later versions, and all the things that were cut, I deeply miss. Like, there are the earlier versions of the film really are alternate prismatic versions of the same film. I understand why they were cut because it's better now. The final third, the problem is watching it all the way through and making sure the last third of 100-minute like trajectory doesn't like slow or get too dreamy. And the current version is absolutely the tightest. Like, you don't get lost. It stays taut. But in order to do that,
some lulls in some previous versions, there was kind of some like, there's some like ethereal bits where maybe it just kind of like a little bit longer, where you kind of pull out of the story. I feel like now it's very, it moves you along at a pace and there's no more kind of breaks, I think. But so Rich, I think you would have probably seen, if you watched the one that was online.
Yeah, I watched the one that was on YouTube, but I also watched one that was like in conjunction, I think, with the screening.
I think
I don't
that
know if those two are
been
different. The movie is so coolly dense that I have a funny feeling that if I were to watch it multiple times, that it would appear different to me almost every time.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it, and that's fun. So I'm really eager to see it with the theater. It's getting cool reviews.
It is getting cool reviews on Letterboxd, and some people have reviewed it, and yeah, I'm grateful every time. Surprised. I'm honestly very surprised that it's connecting as well as it has been. I think it's a lot of fun. I laugh. I get emotional still. But the laughing, it is fun. Like, it's a fun movie, and I think people come out of it feeling good, and I think that the reviews kind of reflect that.
Yeah.
And you will be at the screening, is that right?
I will be at the screening. Yes.
Is
I'm
there
there.
a Q&A after the screening?
I think we'll do a short Q&A. It's a very long evening. So I think if there's any questions, then yeah, I'll be there to answer some questions. But
Is it also going to be showing in any film festivals outside of Negativland tours?
it's actually shown, it's done a festival run, and it's done sort of an international festival run. So this is sort of like the theatrical run. So this is kind of the last run, I suppose, and so this is kind of the last chunk. And then I think there's a couple more screenings in the Midwest, and then there's a screening in Tucson. But it's cool. Basically, if anybody wants to screen it, I would love for anybody to screen it. So if anybody, if anybody wants to host a screening, that's basically what's happening. That's how it happened initially. It was really basically people reaching out to me saying, I would like to set up a screening in Perth, let's say Perth, Australia. And then they would set up this screening. And so that's the reason why people have seen it. And this is the reason why it's been getting good reviews, is because people have taken it upon themselves to set up screenings. So. And
you did a drive-in.
I didn't. That was
it was a Negativland show, but the film didn't show.
No,
yeah, that was.
Oh, okay.
That would have been cool, but no, alas.
Was that with Matmos? Was that?
Yeah, that was all live acts. So the night was already epic in length.
Yeah, sure.
Usually the film is our opening act.
Right. But was the fact it's at a drive-in, I mean, did you guys use your usual visuals and that kind of stuff, like having Sue do stuff?
When we play live, Sue C is in the laptop, and I trigger Sue was touring with us with our current piece, which is called We Can Really Feel Like We're Here. So we have about 5 hours worth of her improvising, loosely metadata tagged with various parts of the show. And as we move through the show, we trigger different parts of it, but never precisely locked in. So the visuals hit in different ways at different parts of our show to different tapes in different ways every night. It's weird when you trigger recordings of improvised material, either music or improvised video, which Sue can do. She can improvise video. When you are triggering recordings of improvisation, somehow they retain, it still feels improvised. You can tell that there's still this weird sort of flow to it. And then if there are other recordings that are also being triggered spontaneously and in real time, it comes together pretty live. Like, it doesn't feel like recordings, or at least it forces you to figure out that recordings aren't exactly what we think they are.
So she is not doing a live remote treatment of your program at this.
We have used the word virtual to describe her, which may have been a mistake, because that implies that she's dialing in and interacting with us from her home or
from
something.
Her home, but that's not what's happening.
No, it is. Okay. I was curious. Yeah. So are we. We miss her. She is working full time for Meow Wolf right now, and she co-authored. She did the visuals for the set. She deserves co-billing. Like, her name definitely belongs there on the marquee, even though when that happens, people expect a human to be there. When she does this, she's always saying, like, and I'll make as many of the shows as I can. Like, she wants the door open. She emotionally wants to be there. And then when showtime comes around, between her 2 teenage kids and a full-time day job, we cannot compete. Yeah. But oddly, it feels like she's there.
That's great.
So
yeah, and she did do it. I mean, the last time I saw you guys, when you played at Holocene, right in the midst of the COVID and all that, she was doing it right there right next to you, right?
Well, there's nothing. Yeah, she's on stage with us, and it takes people a lot of. There's a moment where people realize that every single speck of light on the screen behind her is actually coming from the objects on the table in front of her. She has a camera right in front of her, pointed down. And it doesn't take too long for people to realize, oh, those hands on the screen, those are her hands.
Those are her hands, and she's stirring plastic forks around or something.
Yes,
yeah.
And you know, her jitter patch, well, we could, you know, it's all live, so she belongs on stage. People, your focus goes back and forth between her hands, you know, what's happening on the table in front of you, and the total abstracted insanity of you know, the total psychedelic patterns that are projected big behind her. Your eye goes back and forth, and there's nothing that compares to her being there. So we sure do miss her.
Yeah,
But
that is pretty neat.
One of the
Yeah.
cool things I realized when I was filming their Southwest show is that initially, like, they wouldn't see it. They never saw what was behind them. You know, Sue was live. And so it's like the first time that the video is reacting to the audio as opposed to the other way around. Ordinarily, you know, the sound is kind of like, you know, an accompaniment to the video, but the video is really reacting to the audio. And yeah.
yeah, it's Sue. I keep my peripheral vision on Sue's hands, and every once in a while see a bit of the screen. A couple times we tried having a little monitor in front of us so that we could like see what she was doing more often. But no, when you play live as a musician to live video accompaniment, it's like you're the only person in the room that isn't at the concert, that isn't seeing, you know, most of what the audience brain is taking in. I mean, the way I would describe it is like, what if you're playing in a band with a lead guitarist and everybody else in the band can't hear the lead guitarist, but the audience can? It's like that. So you really need to trust the person who's doing it. And Sue is one of those rare people with like 200 millisecond reflexes. If we don't always know when a song is going to stop, or when, like, you know, sometimes a song ends 30 seconds sooner than we think it's going to because two tapes come together perfect and another song stops and we're like, oh, that's perfect ending, my God. And then we start the next one. Most video artists are dealing with pre-recordings themselves, and they can't react in time because they are triggering, you know, 5-second clips. Like, and if you are dealing with someone who's triggering even a 5-second clip and the video goes for 4 seconds beyond that spontaneous silence, it sounds like the musicians blew it. It sounds like the musicians made a mistake because the video rules. But Sue is one of the only people I know who, if we go silent 200 milliseconds later, she takes her hands off the objects, all the latencies in her patch catch up, screen goes to black, and the audience goes, oh,
Song's over.
wow. Yeah, they meant it.
It's
She's
amazing.
like an improv jazz master in a way, or something. Just listening and reacting.
She's one of the only live video people out there who listens. So I've been playing with her for, you know, over 20 years, and she's family, and yeah, and it's amazing. So it's always great when we have the opportunity to play with her. But it's also been very Negativland-y to improvise with recordings of her. And yeah, as Ryan pointed out, now we're familiarizing ourselves with her video recordings, and we're able to soundtrack or like follow her visuals more than we could in the past, because we're playing to the same bits, and we learn bits like, oh, here comes the bit where the word whatever comes on the screen. Let's time it. Oh, yeah. Here comes the word maybe. Let's time it. And so, yeah, like it's been gratifying to Sue to see some of the captures, like, because it suddenly now we get to respond to her.
That sounds super fun.
Yeah, I love the visual aspect of recent performances. It's fantastic.
Sue lived in Portland for many, many years too.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I remember.
Like 20 years or something, very long time.
I did not know that.
At least,
did she also perform
10.
in Portland? I mean,
I don't know.
Some kind of
a couple times we did a couple shows together. I forget the name of the gallery. Not Meridian, something like that. And you know, she did shows with Ayako, Peter Blasser's wife. She was involved in the scene, but she was also, that was when her kids were 0 through 8 each. So she was, it was a kind of all hands on deck situation.
She actually used to live very close to my house.
Oh wow.
She hung out a lot when you guys were up that time back in September, a few years after, whenever, and she was hanging around. Yeah, we talked Portland for a little while.
Yeah. Oh no, she's Yeah, they went from Oakland, her and her husband. You know, Portland was a pretty good place to raise a family.
You guys are pretty far flung now because Mark's in North Carolina,
Yeah.
and then of course David in Seattle. And
Yeah.
will Weatherman be at this show?
Will he be physically present? Will he actually show up?
Yeah, no.
What do you think? What do you think, Ryan? What are the odds?
No, I mean his telepresence.
Health permitting. It's always a mystery to us. But yeah, he's been really enjoying. He's really been enjoying playing. It makes him really happy.
Yeah, I noticed that he was somewhere online and was basically saying he's preparing for the night's show by doing something. It was really funny. It was like
baking a potato.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, aggressively resting or some kind of thing. He seemed excited.
Yeah,
so that's great. Well, good.
Yeah.
So can we expect anything? I can't remember what did you mention earlier that the material you're going to be doing this coming Friday at the Hollywood is this like all new treatments of stuff you've done before, or is it going to be more like a whole new show that we may not have seen before, or a little of each?
We are playing in its entirety our next record. Which we've been playing on the road for the last 2 years or so. It's a piece called "We Can Really Feel Like We're Here," and we played it at a video game music festival called MagFest. Ryan was there for that's. I don't think any of that made it into the movie, but yeah, it's a set about gaming, specifically alternative reality gaming. And what that might have done to our brains and the way that we perceive reality. And then there are various twists about contemporary events. So we've been playing it for the last 2 years, and some people may have seen it. Versions of it have shown up online, but it's changed a lot. More and more tapes go in, and we get closer and closer. It's getting closer and closer to actually having the density of a finished Negativland record the more we play it. Maybe a little bit too far. Some of Ryan's comments were, she when she checks in, she says, "Oh, it went too far in that direction." And Ryan is, I trust her instinct implicitly.
Count on me to, it can be critical, I suppose.
Well, no, your comment was like way too. I mean, I love the Silicon Valley CEO voice doing product demos. It's I live in San Francisco. It's the vile poison which I live and breathe. So I find it funny, but enough is enough sometimes.
I don't find that voice very funny. It is funny for a minute, I would say.
Yeah,
minute.
But not 4 minutes.
Not 4 minutes.
Well, I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah. So when might a new album appear?
Hopefully this one won't take as long because we've spent 2 years playing it out. I love how every version is slightly different. It's my favorite thing about Over the Edge was how the tapes would be the same every week, but totally different order. So you would really Don would just sort of it's like a rotating camera shot around the same obelisk. The obelisk doesn't even seem to be changing as it rotates, like the landscape around it changes, but it's by the same measure, if you enjoy listening to it, you learn more and more about that obelisk with every passing week. So that's what the show. That's what it feels like to play the show.
You're still doing Over the Edge nearly every week, but also sharing it with K-Rob still?
He does second and fourth.
Oh, okay.
I do first and third, and I've had another surge recently where I'm doing finished episodes again. K-Rob is the main guy keeping the torch alive at this point. I leaned a little bit too hard on repeats sometimes, but then I really, the touring has gotten me. There's been more new shows this year than there was last year.
That's great. And you could possibly return to KPFA. We're in a similar situation in that at KBOO in Portland, where the station is kind of shut down.
Yeah,
kind of open.
You can go in if you want, which is how I do my show.
But I don't want to. I'm going to keep doing mine from home.
I think it's
KPFA is threatening to open again, and
Mhm.
I am looking forward to doing the show in person again. But yeah, the last 4 years has all been remote.
Yeah, that was a weird time.
Well, Rich, you're a master of doing it remotely, so you should see this nifty studio.
All my stuff's here. I don't want to have to lug a case to
And you live just far enough
late
away.
at night.
Yeah.
I used to live much further away, so it was always like, do I come out after my show and find my car's gone or broken into?
Right.
I don't have to deal with and then drive 20 something miles home. So yeah.
I think a lot of people at KPFA are going to continue to upload. Ryan, the video that Ryan, the Negativland video that is mostly Ryan's, like she just sort of said, I think I'm going to make this. And it was just like thumbs up, was This Is Not Normal, which, and
yeah.
that was like April 2020.
Mhm.
Or was it was March? It was March.
No, I think it was April, because March was the reaction time, and then April 2020 was the kind of reaction to COVID, and boy, that still goes on. I was going to say, I didn't realize, I know that a lot of people over the edge listeners are missing the ability to call in and contribute. So I assume that is something that people will look forward to, the studio opening.
Yes. But even then, the secret that Don took with him was how to patch the two phone lines in through external effects. Is it receptacle programming without the Effectron, without digital reverb on each call?
That was so good, yeah.
Is it? And also, at one point, KPFA went on a 15-second delay, which meant that you can no longer listen on headphones and use your telephone like
I remember that.
Oh, right.
The other thing that happened was that the KPFA switched over to a digital phone line, which reconverts all incoming calls to digital and then back to analog.
Horrible.
And everything's already been completely compromised by cell phones. So it is remarkable how much more unpleasant and difficult it is to listen to phone audio.
Yeah.
Phone audio used to be unbelievably pleasant in the 80s. Like that was sort of the peak of phone fidelity.
Oh yeah.
And so like I always, when I listen to peak era phone receptacle programming, where the mixers are, the callers are mixing just as hard as Don is, a caller would be left on for half an hour if they called in with the right tape and were patient and judicious and would like just play that one tape at the right pauses. Or someone would call in playing guitar and just play a couple notes like every third, like, even if you weren't making noises, that was almost the best way to stay on for half an hour, to not make that much noise and draw attention to yourself, which would cause Don to like hang up on you to clear space or move on to the next page. If you just made tiny contributions.
Kind of waited out.
Yeah.
And waited it out.
I wonder if there's a better way to do Over the Edge now than that's not in the studio. Maybe there's a different way to produce it where people can contribute without,
like Zoom or something.
I think more things like the Ann Arbor. My favorite performance that we've done was the Ann Arbor Film Festival, like where we were playing from 4 different locations simultaneously. And if we could get receptacle calling into that, one of the most like the way to watch that, it's archived on YouTube, but the comments were open and we were getting about 5 to 10 comments per second, like a constant stream of text to the right of the screen. And that was very receptacle. Of course, that's totally normal. That's what everybody does, every fan for a modern live performance. Like the comments are where it's at. But of course, for a Negativland thing, it was all like people texting tapes and texting their favorite tape in response and reacting to David's, like, it's almost time for the midnight chicken. Do it before my goddamn beard falls off. Yeah, it's all, it was more receptacle than receptacle can be right now on Over the Edge. So we should do more like the Ann Arbor. Yeah.
Was it David that came up with the schematic for a way to basically jack your tape recorder or something into an actual, like a Bell telephone. Like you
Yes.
took apart the phone, the little mic end of the phone. And this, we're talking about the old Bell 600 phone or whatever, you know, that classic.
The plain old telephone.
Yeah, the regular. I mean, those things are.
Well, those are optimized and EQ'd for human speech. And he had a way of taking off the frequency curve for speech so that you could play bass and you could play keyboards and instruments, and it would be more phone fidelity.
Yeah.
It's similar to when you take the speech compression off of Zoom so that it doesn't duck and like screen out everything that isn't speech, which is very bad for music. So musicians, in order to play on Zoom, have to turn that compressor off, and that's what David's thing basically did. It's amazing.
Is there really no better thing than Zoom for musicians remotely to play with each other? Like, is that really the only option besides like Google Meet? There's no, I'm surprised that some genius person hasn't put together some kind of a musical studio.
Especially during the COVID era when you had bands actually trying to play together via some kind of internet.
Because it's very annoying, the noise cancellation and
I think there is, but I'm not sure. I don't know which ones work collaboratively, like with a number of people like Zoom does. Zoom's improved it quite a bit since I've been using it.
There are actually a number. I did some with a platform called Ninjam. We use something called Ecamm, which is subscription only and run by Jennifer Bennett, who is also, she was the one who directed the Ann Arbor Film Festival performance, and she just kept the scenes moving, and she was, you know, like she kept things moving. Like, you know, when somebody was doing interesting, she'd put that person full screen, or just keep the tiles moving in a way so that it wouldn't remain just 5-camera static the way it was for the Tiny Desk concert that we did. God, there's another one that I'm remembering. We just played Wave Farm, and they are collaborating on a music-based platform. But most of it really is solved by taking the compression off. And then, you know, the platform is the platform. There's no secret sauce. You just want to not optimize for speech, and then suddenly you have music.
And it's kind of buried in your preferences in Zoom. I learned it eventually.
Yeah. But it's not... The main annoying, Ecamm also lets you customize the interface so that it's not corporately branded, which is very important.
Yeah, the Tiny Desk concert was wonderful. That was great. That was a really cool integration too of Susie's visuals, and yeah, that was great. It was a little disappointing you weren't actually in the little Tiny Desk studio, but that was COVID, you know.
Oh, that was COVID.
Yep. What a weird time, and I've always adopted that. This is not normal track.
Well,
that's the theme song of that era. It was just such a bizarre time,
which is largely due to Ryan's video.
That
song
really
the song had nothing to do with COVID, and Ryan put that together while she was piling through COVID, like a really bad case of COVID. So, and
COVID Alpha, I believe that was like the first round. March. Third week of March.
So you had the idea for that. Like, when did you realize that was how you were that was your therapy?
Yeah, that was, well, I think we all had this experience globally of all of a sudden everything's online, and here are these very familiar media pieces that we're all sharing. I think there was a few things that Jon had me take out because they were too on the nose, but now in hindsight they're not. Like there was the bit about like the Italian people on the balconies dancing together with like old movies. Do you remember that visual?
Oh yeah.
There were a few of those where Italy, I think, was the ones to kind of share it with the world. It sort of hit there first, and so the world would get the visual of like, okay, COVID's in Italy now, and this is what we're doing. And so it was just kind of a capsule of that time.
I remember Italy seemed like it kind of became the poster child for how, you know, the medical communities were having, you know, they were getting slammed, and then I don't know, it just they made it look like possible, and like they were really trying to get through it, and you know,
and keep
anyway.
They were trying to keep a certain levity, I think, and I think that there was singing, and there was some dancing, and there was sort of like, what do we do now? There was sort of, I remember some people escaped, like people were in lockdown, but then some people would escape and go out in a dinosaur costume or something, or a fluffy
Yeah,
costume. And
the dinosaur motif of the
yeah,
video
it
is,
was such an odd time, and it's even still too hard to reflect on it because in a lot of ways we're still in it.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on the record, that comment, we were trying really hard to have that record, true false, be a referendum on. It's a very political record, and we didn't want to sample anything that would link it to that precise age, and so the "This Is Not Normal" track. The point of that track very clearly by repeating, doing a supercut of that many people insisting like a mantra that this is not normal. The point of that track is, yes, it's normal. Yes, this is very much normal. Your memory might disagree, but what is your memory really? And then COVID happens, and that definitely wasn't normal. But that video snapshot of what was going on, that was everybody's reality. So I'm still getting to the bottom of what in the world that video.
Normal changes faster and faster.
Yeah.
I think we'll always accept it, but what is normal? It's never been normal. It's always been normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our takeaway.
Yeah.
Well, the video has the opposite meaning from the track, which is always great. That's like, all of the videos you've done for Negativland never slavishly like illustrate the track, but usually try to find something unspoken in the track, and then you're like contradicting the track or putting something opposite direction, or like, the way that More Data, the original track, is sort of about privacy surveillance, but by using the "this person does not exist" footage and all of the AI generated, like what's being surveyed. It's not only the real people this technology is surveying, it's the fact that we can't tell. The video makes the very real point that like half of the people being surveyed aren't even real, and humans are the ones failing Turing. That's not necessarily in the track, but it is now thanks to the video. So this is not normal. Like, no, none of the stuff in that video is happening now, but it kind of actually still is. It's not a nostalgic watch. Like, the stuff being depicted isn't happening anymore, but we're still very much in the repercussions of the fact that nothing's normal now either. 4 years after that video. But you were really sick, right? Like keeping yourself sane by working on that. Like,
that's interesting.
Do you remember?
I was sick. I was sick, and then I got better. But it was. But it was at the time when there weren't tests. This was like mid-March, so there weren't tests. You weren't allowed to leave anywhere. If you had it, you stayed put. And so I fortunately had people could bring me things that helped. It was kind of like drop off the bag in the front door of the albuterol or something.
And it was a terrible strain of COVID too. I mean, the people who got it were, that was a much worse version.
Well,
of COVID
I remember
than
it.
I haven't gotten it ever, but I've heard.
Oh, you haven't? Well, it was just odd. I remember it just being very odd that like I couldn't get out of bed. Just just the level of exhaustion that you just can't get. If you try to get out of bed, you try to get to the door, and then you just kind of like have to rest halfway between the bed and the door. It's just it was intense.
Apparently it was
and I remember the brain fog. I sat down to a computer and I didn't know how to do the things that I knew how to do so well.
That's scary.
That is scary. Yeah. And here you are trying to do something kind of complicated and
very complicated. Yeah.
Geez.
Yeah.
Well, that video was I think it really reached. I don't know what the target was.
Also, any excuse to use those Wen and Freeman mods for the GTA with the cars flying up in the air. Have you seen? So you know the GTA mods. I mean, you probably describe this better, John, what this is, but
the Grand Theft Auto modifications. There are a lot of people who don't who play Grand Theft Auto just as a world. You don't try to finish any of the missions. You just drive around and like kill people and like enjoy driving your car off a cliff. There are people who have taken it further and done physics mods so that you can drive a train on the freeway, or that you can attach a windmill to the front of your car, or that your gun, instead of shooting bullets, shoots other cars, and you can run people over with it. One of the best people to do this is a YouTube user, Wenin Freeman. I forget what country he's from. We've tried to reach out to him because, oh my God, this person's work deserves its own 24-hour video monitor at like the Guggenheim or MoMA. It's the highest form of art, just watching the things that he programs into the Grand Theft Auto world. And
it's also the captures, like capturing this, perfect sunset with this slow motion and these cars kind of going in a funnel up into the sky, and they're all burning. It's just, it's really incredible stuff.
Yeah, like so the image of like a bunch of cars driving along the street, and then all of a sudden they all come to a stop, and then gravity turns off, and they all begin levitating, and then they just all burst into flames, like that. Those are his. Yeah, that's Wenin Freeman, and I hope we meet that guy. We, in classic Negativland style, we have just taken, and we're honest about it online, but boy, do we owe him. Yeah, we've sampled him more than once.
I hope you all meet up.
Yeah, he's a big part of this final of the next show as well.
COVID did result in a lot of really interesting electronic arts, I think. People being shut in again and working on really cool things has resulted in some really creative stuff.
A lot of our lives really became the screens. And one of the things that is really addressed in the new, one of the repercussions of that were things like QAnon and, the upcoming show about alternative reality games. The succinct definition of alternative reality games are games that are played using the same social media platforms that normal people use to communicate, and you use forums like Reddit or YouTube, or and you hide clues in existing newspaper headlines, and the authors or game masters work on the fly with their plot lines, improvising the clues, and in fact often authoring new clues that respond to the theories that are being cooked up by the people playing the game.
Is QAnon considered a game then?
Well, some of the people who have been involved with the aesthetics of alternative reality games were the first to mention, what QAnon is, right? QAnon is an alternative reality game. This is absolutely there. It is obeying all the rules, where there is a confusion between the people playing it and the people who are writing the game and the people who are playing it. A total confusion. And the confusion is there on purpose. That's the fun of the game. Oh God, I forget it's not Ahedonia. The moment where like you think you're playing the game, so the game is won by looking for patterns, and you find patterns everywhere. But your brain's powerless not to believe that those patterns that you're detecting are in fact real. So QAnon, which starts on a platform like 8chan, but then gets broken down and escapes to other platforms like YouTube by people who think it's real, become the primary distributors of the ideas. And, the internet sort of, the joy of it from the beginning was the ability to post anonymously and without repercussion. The internet was a game.
It's so weird. It's almost like this weird infection that has broken a barrier. I never thought QAnon stuff would. I know people that actually really believe all of that stuff, and that it's real. And
I think we have people in politics that believe it's real.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, and like real politics, that they think that the QAnon stuff actually exists. It really, as batshit crazy as it is. It's just I never would have thought I'd live so long to see people believe some of the things that they're believing right now.
Well, it's like
Scary.
you can't break down the percentages. The stories read as true, and then you have subsections of people who don't actually believe that the Democrats are harvesting the blood of children being murdered for the adrenochrome. That's just a metaphor. But then you also get people who actually do believe that. And it's almost a waste of your time to break down the people who are reading the story as a metaphor. And,
It's sort of affected what I play or won't play on the radio anymore. It's like I'm actually kind of nervous to play things like crazy Francis E. Deck type, conspiracy people we find kind of amusing, because they're people crazy enough to believe some of that
The
stuff.
kind of stuff that was being released back in the 80s or
Yeah.
70s, just like the ranting guy who just takes it upon himself to put out a bunch of cassettes or,
Yeah,
get a
it's
record
gone
for it.
mainstream.
yes,
It's weird.
There's a
And
really
they
fine
believe
line,
it.
isn't there? Like it's pretty easy to come across as crazy nowadays because you can
Yeah.
pick your topic, and if you go too far with that topic, you're going to appear crazy to at least somebody.
Yeah, and if you're not really careful, you could get elected to a high office.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yes. Well, the only politicians that can make it in certain circles are the ones that have gotten high on their own supplies and actually believe the Alex Jones stories. And the Alex Jones stories are, doesn't take a genius to understand that a plague is going to happen. It's the fact that he went on record and had a larger narrative about why the plague happened that provides the catnip.
Well, everybody wants attention and
Yeah.
power, and some of these guys started with the attention and the power, and found that if you add a little dose of QAnon, it sure does increase your attention a lot more.
For sure.
Yeah, the metrics take off. If Negativland's project is media literacy, gaming, and the technology of gaming, which now outpaces cinema, outpaces music, like that's the medium to pay attention to and to reverse engineer. The state of the art of modern storytelling occurs in gaming. That's where all the money and all the attention is. It has absorbed cinema, absorbed music. Songs become hits when they're rolled into Grand Theft Auto.
Isn't that weird?
Well, it makes sense. And yet nobody over 45 follows either the stories or the myths of games. Half of Elon Musk's posts only make sense when you know the plot ending, the cutscenes from Metal Gear Solid, which I've never played. But the second you read them, you realize, oh my God, you mental midget, you child. You recognize the memes, and then it makes sense. But media literacy at this point incorporates games and the expectations that the audience has of interactive storytelling and the clues that are left. And media literacy for alternative reality games is the only way to make sense of the 2016 elections and every election afterwards. So that's, without giving away too much, that's what, that's the world we're living in for the next, for this set, but we're still figuring out ourselves what normal is.
Well, with that, we should probably wrap it up soon.
Sure.
Enough to edit from, I suspect.
Oh yeah. So you guys are going to be appearing at the Hollywood Theater on August 2nd. They say doors at 7. So yeah, hopefully you can come in and watch this wonderful movie. I've seen it a couple times, but I'm really eager to see it with the audience. Toby's not seen it.
No, I'm saving myself.
He's a longtime Negativland fan,
yeah.
so this will be really exciting. Well,
And Ryan, Ryan, you're going to be there.
I will be there.
You were a Seattle native for a while.
Yes, I'm very, very excited. I haven't been to Portland in a long time, and I'm super excited to go to the Hollywood Theater.
You currently reside in where?
I'm in Joshua Tree.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a little ways away. So, but I'm very excited. So I hope people come. I hope people laugh. I hope people weep and sing along. And
sing along with the weatherman at the end of the show.
Yeah, hopefully. Hope to see
failure. I am failure.
Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful chatting with you guys. And I will air this on the show tonight.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Oh my
Well, thank
God.
you. Okay, that's the end of the interview part. Not that we have to go, but thank you so much.
I hope you got good stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was nice to meet you.